It was late December 1986 in San Diego, California, a time when holiday lights twinkled across the city. Families gathered for festive celebrations, and the air carried the crisp, coastal chill of winter nights. For 20-year-old Kara Knott, Christmas had been picture perfect. She had spent the holiday with her family, opening presents and sharing laughter over a home-cooked meal. But now, she was spending time with her boyfriend, Wayne, in Escondido, about 30 miles north of her home. Wayne had been sick with the flu, and Kara, always caring, had spent the day taking care of him, checking his temperature, making soup, and keeping him company while he rested. By the evening of December 27th, Wayne was starting to feel better, so Kara decided it was time to head home. At 8:30 p.m., she picked up the phone and called her parents. "I'll be home soon." She packed up her things and headed to her car for the 45-minute drive home. She never arrived. At first, her parents, Sam and Joyce Knott, weren't too worried. Maybe she had stopped somewhere or lost track of time. But by 10 p.m., they felt uneasy. By 11 p.m., they were panicked. Kara wasn't the type to just disappear. If she had decided to stay out later, she would have called. Sam, overwhelmed by an awful gut feeling, grabbed his keys. "I'm going to find her." He retraced the exact route she would have taken. Interstate 15 South, the freeway from Escondido to San Diego. Nothing. By 5:15 a.m., they had their answer. Kara's old Volkswagen Beetle was found at the Mercy Road exit, a lonely, unfinished off-ramp that led to nowhere. Her keys were still in the ignition. Her purse, wallet, and gas receipt were untouched on the seat. And just beyond the bridge, down in the ravine, officers found her body. Kara had been strangled to death and thrown over the edge. Sam Knott was at the scene. "Did you find my daughter?" he asked, his voice trembling. The officer lowered his head and whispered, "Yes, sir. I'm sorry." Sam didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "I wish you could have known her. She was an angel." At first, detectives were stumped. There was no robbery, no sexual assault, no clear motive. And the biggest mystery, why had Kara stopped her car at that isolated off-ramp? Detectives considered a worst-case scenario, that she had been targeted by a random killer, someone who had forced her off the road, but that theory quickly fell apart. There were no tire tracks suggesting she had been chased down, and her car was parked neatly, like she had pulled over voluntarily. Who would she willingly stop for? Investigators turned to the last person to see her alive, her boyfriend, Wayne. Had an argument turned deadly? Did he follow her home and do something? Wayne was brought in for questioning. His alibi was airtight. At the exact time of Kara's murder, Wayne was home with his sister, a fact confirmed by phone records and witnesses. Detectives were met with one chilling thought. If Wayne didn't do this, who would Kara have trusted enough to stop for? Just a few days later, local station KCST-TV aired a special news segment on driver safety. With the recent murder of Kara Knott, many women were on edge, terrified to drive alone at night. This news report was made to help women stay safe on the road, even though it had come too late for Kara. The broadcast featured a well-known California Highway Patrol officer, one of their most trusted faces, offering advice to female drivers on how to stay safe. His name was Craig Pyre, a 13-year veteran of the California Highway Patrol, and the perfect person to help get the message across to female viewers in the area. And as the cameras rolled, he looked directly into the lens, warning women about the dangers of stopping in deserted areas. If someone approaches your car, never get out. Stay inside, lock your doors, and call for help. As Craig cruised along Interstate 15 with a reporter beside him, continuing his talk on road safety and the dangers of driving alone at night, something caught his eye. Up ahead, a car was pulled over on the side of the freeway. Pyre's expression hardened as he flipped on his flashing lights. "See," "This is exactly what I'm talking about," he muttered to the reporter, his hands already guiding the patrol car toward the shoulder. The vehicle, a dark-colored sedan, sat motionless, its hazard lights blinking dimly. Inside, a man in his 40s sat behind the wheel, staring straight ahead, seemingly lost in thought. Pyre parked behind him, stepped out, and approached the driver's window. The reporter and camera crew stayed back, filming from a distance. With his usual authoritative stance, Pyre tapped on the glass. The man inside hesitated for a second, then rolled the window down. "Evening, sir," Pyre said, his voice calm but firm. "Everything all right?" The man shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the camera crew before clearing his throat. Yeah, just needed a second." "A second," Pyre repeated, nodding slowly. Then, he leaned in slightly. "Sir, do you have any idea how dangerous it is to stop on the freeway at night?" The man swallowed hard and nodded. "I know, He stopped himself, his fingers tapping against the steering wheel. Pyre gave him a long, measured look before continuing. "Let me tell you something," Pyre said, stepping back slightly and gesturing toward the road. "We just had a young woman murdered not far from here. A driver all alone, just like you, pulled over in a dark area. Now, I don't know what you're doing out here, but stopping on a highway like this? Bad idea." The man nodded quickly, his face pale. "I get it. I wasn't thinking." "Well, start thinking," Pyre shot back, crossing his arms. "You never know who might pull up behind you. Someone with bad intentions? You could be a sitting duck." The reporter shifted in her seat, watching the scene unfold through the windshield of the patrol car. From her perspective, the entire situation had an uneasy tension to it, and the man's nervous glances just made it worse. After another few seconds, Pyre exhaled sharply. "All right, get back on the road, and don't stop like this again, understand?" The man nodded quickly, started his car, and pulled away without another word. Back in the patrol car, as the taillights of the sedan disappeared into the night, the reporter finally spoke up. "Think he was up to something?" she asked, adjusting her microphone. Pyre smirked slightly. "Who knows," he said, chuckling to himself. The segment wrapped up soon after, cutting to a public service announcement about driver safety. And then, just minutes after the broadcast aired, the calls started pouring in. Something viewers had noticed in that broadcast had made people very uneasy. First, it was one call, then two, then dozens. Women all over San Diego were calling in, all saying the same thing. "That officer, I know him. He pulled me over." Each woman told a similar story. They had been driving alone on Interstate 15. He pulled them over at the exact same Mercy Road off-ramp and kept them there, talking for an uncomfortably long time. He would sit in their car, touch their hair, stroke their shoulders, and ask them personal questions. One woman, shaking over the phone, said, "I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what." At first, investigators thought, this is just a coincidence. Maybe he was just overly friendly. But then, they checked his personnel file, and buried inside were complaints. Multiple women had filed reports about him before. And when detectives thought back and reviewed the recording of Craig's news segment, they noticed something that no one had before: the scratches on his face. Craig had claimed he fell into a fence at the CHP station, but when officers went to check, they found that the fence was too tall to have caused the injuries. And there was something else. Witnesses at a gas station near the murder scene remembered seeing a patrol car just after Kara left the station. One witness even swore they saw the officer inside. It was Pyre. And that's when the police knew they had their killer. At trial, the evidence was overwhelming. A single gold fiber from Kara's sweater matched the CHP patch on Pyre's uniform. A tiny drop of blood on her shoe matched Pyre's rare blood type, AB negative, and his logbook showed erasures and inconsistencies, covering up his exact whereabouts at the time of the murder. The first trial ended in a hung jury. But in 1988, Pyre was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life. To this day, he denies everything. And when investigators asked him to submit DNA to prove his innocence, he refused, because he already knew the answer.